Senator Rand Paul is in Israel today, and it's interesting because many people are rumoring that he will run for president in 2016. Now, Senator Paul, of course, is the son of Ron Paul, and Rand Paul has adopted most of the same stances as his father, but he's varied on some. Now, when Ron Paul was running for the presidency, he was especially criticized for his stances concerning Israel. Really, he did not stand against Israel. What he said was that the United States could not afford foreign aid at all, that we're going bankrupt. And the only way that we're able to give out all this foreign aid is by borrowing the money. And it makes no sense to borrow money, bankrupt yourself while you're giving away that money to other nations. So he advocated the cessation of all foreign aid, including to Israel. Well, now then, Mr. Rand Paul is following in his father's footsteps. However, he is taking a little bit more of a moderate stance. He says, yes, we should, in fact, stop all foreign aid, but we need to phase out gradually, and our best friends are the ones that should be phased out the last. Matter of fact, let me just read to you a couple of the examples of what he has to say. Paul said it is one thing if you are giving foreign aid out of your savings, but it is something completely different if you are borrowing from one country to give to another. For example, we're mostly borrowing from China right now. So we're borrowing from China so that we can afford to give to Egypt, to Israel, to other countries. And so he is saying that we simply must stop doing that, or else we will bankrupt our country. We will not be able to be a friend to Israel at all. Now, it was so interesting that he specifically said the United States is and always will be a friend of Israel. But then he goes on to say, he acknowledged that he would probably not see an end to foreign aid in his lifetime, and he was all for gradualism and would start ending foreign aid to those countries who don't act as allies towards Israel. So he's saying, we are Israel's friend, and we would stop foreign aid first to all of those people who are against the nation of Israel. He went on to say he was concerned that the U.S. was trying to win friends in the region by providing them with arms, where you can have a situation down the line where Israel would have to face up against Egypt, supplied with U.S. state-of-the-art tanks. Now, we know that recently we made a deal to sell 20 airplanes, I think they were F-16s, to Egypt. And that may well be what Rand Paul is referring to here, even though he specifically mentions tanks right now. He's saying, in the name of foreign aid, we're giving arms to Israel's enemies, and we are. So it could very well be that our foreign aid would hurt Israel. The cessation of foreign aid would hurt our enemies and Israel's enemies a whole lot more than it would hurt Israel. Now, Paul went on to say that as far as aid to Israel is concerned, he is not suggesting disengagement or that the U.S. should stop selling armaments, but he said it wouldn't be a one-way street. It would be a sale, not a grant. Now, sometime back, Prime Minister Netanyahu said, we don't need America's money. We have money, and that is the truth. Israel is a very wealthy nation, so Israel does not need our money. She's much better off financially than the United States of America is right now. So Rand Paul is undoubtedly attempting to fix a huge problem with Israel, because you cannot run on the Republican ticket and be anti-Israeli. Matter of fact, it's hard to run on any ticket and be anti-Israeli or to be perceived as anti-Israeli. Now, this next thing is so interesting, what Paul had to say. He, on a number of occasions, cited Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's 1996 speech in Congress, saying he wanted to wean Israel off of American aid, said that decent aid would be beneficial for Israel because it would retain its own sovereignty and not have to come on bended knee to ask the U.S. permission on a variety of issues, such as settlements. So Paul is saying, look, you'd be better off without depending on our aid, because you put yourself under too much pressure for the people who are giving you the money to also demand that you obey their dictates instead of doing what is in your best interest. Now, Paul arrived there yesterday, Sunday, and he's scheduled to meet later in the day with Benjamin Netanyahu and President Shimon Peres, and then he's going to visit Jordan, and there he will meet with Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas and also the King Abdullah of Jordan. Paul was recently selected to the Senate Foreign Relations Committee and declined to say what he thought about the likely nomination of former Republican Senator Chuck Hagel, which, as far as I know, happened today. Now, one more thing about this whole thing that's so interesting. When it was found out that Senator Rand Paul was going to be on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, which is a very powerful place to be, the National Jewish Democratic Council lashed out Friday over the recent appointment of Republican Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky to the Senate's Foreign Relations Committee, citing his deeply disturbing record when it comes to the U.S.-Israel relationship. So, interesting material developing here, something already looking ahead to 2016. Many people think that Hillary Clinton is already looking ahead to 2016. Now, that remains to be seen because there's a lot of questioning about Benghazi that could certainly place a scar across the possibility of a Hillary Clinton presidency in 2016. We're going to have to wait and see how that all turns out. It was thought that she was feigning illness to avoid testifying. She sent a couple of her aides to testify on her behalf on the Benghazi affair. Then she supposedly fell and incurred a blood clot on her brain as a result of the fall, and so she's been unavailable for about 30 days or so now. The latest is, though, that she is going to end up testifying on Benghazi. Apparently, her advisors are telling her, look, this is going to hurt you so bad if you don't go ahead and testify. We better put the package together and cast it in the best possible light so that you can get this off of your record so that 4 years from now, it will be forgotten. Now, that appears to be what is going on now, and I am speculating a little bit on my own part. So that's one of the main stories breaking today that I thought everyone should realize, because Rand Paul would certainly be a different kind of presidential candidate as far as we know. We understand that his father was very much for fiscal soundness. He was for auditing the Fed. If you'll notice in the latest budget that was just passed, just a little note that everyone should notice, that there was a very special section in there favoring the big banks. Now, we thought Barack Obama was supposed to be for the little guy. Well, you better take a look very carefully. Goldman Sachs is not a little guy. J.P. Morgan is not a little guy. But these people got a sweetheart deal in this last tax package. So sometimes things appear one way, but in reality, they are another. Oh, by the way, Americans around the nation received less on their paycheck this time. Now, remember when them telling you that if Barack Obama were elected, that there would be no tax increase on the average American, only those above $400,000 a year? Well, look at your paycheck and see if you believe them now. Look at your paycheck. The rumblings are already beginning because average people are finding their paychecks cut by as high as $80 a week right now. So it's going to be a pretty serious cut. Some of them not quite that much. So anyway, that was one of the big stories breaking over the weekend. Another thing that's breaking, Mr. Bashar Assad of Syria went to the microphones for the first time in several months, made a speech. We're going to go over that speech in just a little bit. Right now, though, I want to go on to the phones, and Blake is calling in from Arkansas today. Hello, Blake. What's on your mind?
Yes. Irvin, I was listening to CNN News yesterday on Frank GPS thingy. He was talking about yesterday that it's over 50% chance now that Israel will, or Iran will attack Israel, and I want your opinion on that.
Well, most of the rumor is that either Israel or the U.S. will attack Iran. If Iran was absolutely convinced that they were getting ready to come under attack, then they may decide to launch a first strike in order to gain the advantage. However, I would be shocked if Iran pulled the trigger on Israel, because Israel has 200 or more nuclear weapons that she could unleash against Iran, and Iran would, for all intents and purposes, cease to exist as a nation. So I would be really surprised if Iran took the initiative and launched an attack against the nation of Israel, even though Iran will serve in an international force at Armageddon. The Bible teaches very clearly that Persia will accompany Russia down against Israel at the Battle of Armageddon, and Persia is modern-day Iran. So I don't think Iran's going to attack Israel on her own as an aggressive move, but if Israel would attack Iran, then Iran said that she will retaliate with all of her might. So that's the way I see that right now, Blake.
Okay, and what about the Euphrates River? Is that going to be dried up at the Battle of Armageddon as well?
Well, that's when it is going to be dried up. Even though the Bible talks about this war that's going to kill 1/3 of mankind of Revelation chapter 9, it does not say there that the Euphrates will be dried up at that time. It simply says there are 4 angels bound in the great river Euphrates, which are prepared for a day, a month, an hour, a day, a month, and a year, for to kill 1/3 of mankind. So the drying up the Euphrates does not happen until Revelation 16 at the end of the Great Tribulation, and that's when Russia, Iran, and others will invade Israel for the Battle of Armageddon. So Euphrates will be dried up then, but not at the time of the Sixth Trumpet War, which happens before the Great Tribulation.
Okay, so you don't think there's going to probably be a war this year in 2013 then?
No, I'm not saying that. I would, if there's going to be a war between Israel, well, first of all, it may not even be started between Israel and Iran. We already have a big war on our hands. As a matter of fact, Friday, the Patriot missiles moved into Turkey along the border of Syria, and there are like 12 or 16 Russian battleships off the coast of Syria right now with several thousand Marines on them. And Russia is putting Iskander missiles into Syria right now. So we have Russian troops on the ground in Syria. We have American troops on the ground in Turkey. It's a volatile situation, and yes, there could be war.